right. Welcome back. This is Doug Wheeler. This is my podcast, From the Belly. The new theme this season, I don't know how many episodes we'll have in this season. We'll see if CBS or NBC wants to, or Netflix wants to continue to support us. They don't even support podcasts, right? And I do know that if Andrew was editing this, he would edit that out. But I'm editing this, and I'm not editing that out. We'll see what AI does with it. Today, my guest is Joseph Yu, and I want to tell you how I met Joseph, and it's just how I met my last guest. So I introduced Sarah Klingler. That was last week. By the time you watch this one, if everything flows right, I'll have Sarah's up and running. But as I told the audience, and this is the way it's rolling in this season. Oh, and by the way, this season's title is Why Not Church? Or maybe Why Church? So it's said from a place of, well, why not? And then a little suspect of why. And that comes from a lot of different places and people and a lot of different people in the audience about what you feel about church and what your experience has been about church. What drew me to my guest today is simply his candor, his honesty. I watched a few of his clips, just like I said about Sarah last week. I was like, I got to talk to this person. So I reached out. Sometimes I do those cold reach outs, and it's crickets, man. And the way I've interpreted that at 66 years of age is like, that door's not supposed to open. And then Joseph responded. And I'm like, all right, can we chat? So we got on Zoom. We had a really nice conversation. I told him midway, I said, I think we're already in the podcast. We're already doing it. Let's get this. Let's record this. We were on the wrong platform, though. Anyways, with no further ado, I wrote out some questions. I want to say a few things as I set the table here. Anyways, Andrew would remind me, it's like, Doug, welcome your guest. Welcome, Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet, man. We're going to get into some good stuff today. I feel it. We talked, Joseph and I had a few minutes to kind of set the table. Who knows? We might mess up all the items we put on the table. We might make a mess of it. Who knows? We might go a different direction, but we're going to serve up a few things about our topic. But we both connected on that Ozzy Osbourne died today. And wow, that's just, this last performance and all. I mean, I'm sure it just shocked people. Maybe not that it comes so soon after that.
It's funny because it's one thing where it's a double shock, right? Like one, I was shocked that he died. And then there's a smaller shock that, with his past, that he lived this long. Like 76, I think is still young, but I mean, I'm pretty sure he did drugs that I don't even know exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm surprised Keith Richards is still alive. Wait, Keith Richards is still alive, right?
Oh, yeah. At least according to yesterday's news. Yeah, but I'm ready for one of the Stones to be gone, man.
Oh,
I mean, it's that time frame. You're right. My brother, who's left this world, he loved the Stones. He used to refer to Keith as the walking skeleton. And I'm sure Keith would like that. So there's a lot of people grieving out there. I mean, for me, Black Sabbath, I was telling Joseph, my brother's the one who introduced me to rock and roll. And I can almost remember going through the records and looking at the front cover of one of the Black Sabbath albums that I have somewhere out in my stash because I got all my brother's records after he died. But I remember he'd put that on and it always scared me. It just scared me. It's like the graphics on the front. It's just like, I don't know. I didn't associate it with anything like, satanic something or some dude. It just scared me. I was just like, well, put on that Creedence Clearwater Revival album. That doesn't scare me. So we pay our respect to Ozzy and all the folks that are grieving because, that's a long journey. People have stories to tell about that. So a very short bio on Joseph because I used to do these long drawn out bios and I'd read them and the guest would look bored. And I'd be like, well, I'm telling the guest something they already know. And they're like, I don't care how far you go back with that. So here's all that Joseph has on his website. And I loved it because it's a short bio. Joseph is the priest and planter of Mosaic Episcopal Church. And remind me where that is located.
It is in a suburb of Houston called Pearland.
Got you.
There's no pears in our city, though. So I don't know why we call it Pearland.
Okay. His wife, Rahel, and son, Nathanael, who's 15, I think you said?
He's turning 15. He is 14 right now.
I love this, the way you wrote this, man. Do their best to love him. He, in parentheses, like almost everybody else, has a blog. So that's interesting. And then I love this last phrase, man. Need prayer or even just coffee? Contact Joe today, and he will find a way to meet with you. I thought, well, that's just an open offer. So,
I might have to scale that down a little bit because I've been getting a lot of requests and It's like, okay, I really want to help, but I have my flock, so to speak. I have people I'm indebted to first. But I just, as much as I can, I want to be able to provide some sort of hope to the people who reach out. But it's come to a point, I never thought it'd come to this point, but it's come to the point where it's taking over actual work I need to do. So I have to make decisions, and I feel guilty about it for like 5 seconds, and then I get lost because I have undiagnosed ADD. And but if you ever reached out to me and I never gotten back to you, I am so sorry, but I really do try.
Mm. And I've come to in my life where the intent of something almost always in my mind equals the delivery. Not always, but the intent is there. So tell us about, it's a great starting place. Tell us about this audience of people that are reaching out to you and why. What's the draw?
You know what? I have no idea. I had a decent following on TikTok since like 2021. It wasn't like I had like 120,000 followers on TikTok, and that was manageable because no one reached out. But somewhere, I mean, I think it's because of President Trump's presidency. Like after the inauguration, something happened with my Instagram algorithm, and everything just started blowing up. And like in Instagram from into January, I had like maybe 20,000 followers, and then I ended February with like 55,000 followers, and it's just been growing. I genuinely don't know why, all except the fact that my faith, my theology is counter to the Christian nationalist and MAGA Christian theology. So I'm thinking that's what's resonating, and the people that reach out are the ones that genuinely have questions or experience some harm or trauma from the church. And a lot of questions that I receive are like, how can I reconcile what my church who gave me faith is doing and now what they're saying, and where do I fit in all that? Or some people have shared of how they were spiritually or emotionally abused by their leaders because like a lot of churches, a lot of religion, when we're not careful, boils down to control. And the line between control and loving is so thin. We often mistake love, but we often think we're controlling is out of love, and that's not the case. So you have these pastors and church leaders who try to control the way that you think and so that the way you live, and often doing so, when they do that, often causes a lot of harm. So I have a lot of people who are deconstructing, who are trying to piece back their life together, and genuinely wants to ask questions that they're struggling with, like, did my mom, who was baptized but haven't gone to church for the past 30 years, died, is she in hell like everyone says? Those kind of like really like it might it might not seem like a big deal if you're not in it, but there are, for those people, that's like they have this existential angst about where their beloved friends are because they didn't go to church, and that's because of the church. We instilled that fear in them, and that fear should have never been instilled. But fear is a powerful tool to control somebody, and it's easier to, I've said this many times, it's easier to control people than it is to love people. So we always default towards control when we feel like things are out of control. We double down on things that we can't control and the people we try to control. There's a lot of people who have come out of that and are trying to make sense of this new world where this body of people aren't trying to dictate every single thing that they do or think or say.
Joseph, it would be like me as well. The text, Henry Nouwen's book, The Wounded Healer, was very important for me and remains very important for me. And that's the space I've worked in. So I can imagine what people are reaching out about. And even as you say, man, I mean, the way they're holding that trauma and the existential just chaos of that and all of that. I know that space well. I've got a question from the other side of the fence.
Okay.
The other side is, and you can get as specific in any of my questions as you want to, if you want to name names or whatever, but I'm not pushing for any of that. But can you tell us a story that's either happened or you would imagine the way it would unfold, where a leader, a pastor, who's insulated in this bubble and doing this control stuff, maybe thinking it's love, but we know that if we watched it, you and I, we would know what it is and we would know how it affects people, but they're insulated in that. And let's say the majority of their people are insulated in that. Can you tell a story that it's either it's true and be as specific as you want, or it's one that you imagine? What penetrates that pastor's insulated mind, heart bubble? What begins to either in the moment blow that apart or slowly erode to where they self-confess, this ain't right. What I'm doing and what's happening to my people is wrong? I mean, what do you have a story to tell?
Yeah, I think I can tell the story. If not,
Please.
he's my brother, so he'll forgive me. And then he jokes about it, so I don't care. My brother and got was joined a church in Hawaii when we moved out. So when my wife and I moved out of islands, my family also moved out of islands. My brother stayed behind, and he joined this church. And he was telling me about it, and I was like, "That's a lot. That's a little bit weird." And
Hmm.
as when he got more into it, it was really weird, and it was really difficult to have any conversations with my brother about anything because he was everything had to be something related to the Bible, and I'm just like, dude, can we just talk about can we talk about normal things? And he's like, well, it's normal if Jesus. It
Yeah.
was just so, like, for instance, when the big earthquakes in Japan happened, maybe a decade ago, Hawaii was on a tsunami watch. And so I texted my brother and I was like, hey, please be careful, fill up your gas, go to a high, just be mindful because, the tsunami talk is serious. And he, in all seriousness, no sarcasm, no jokings, texted back to me and said, yeah, we understand, but if we die, it'll be great because we get to go home earlier. And I was like, what? So it was almost like there was no way of getting into, because he has been insulated. I found out, he recently shared with me that a lot of the people that went to that church stayed in the same apartment complex that was owned by the pastor's parents. So they're inundated, and the pastor was really into matchmaking people in their congregation. So like a lot of the people met their spouses at that
Nice.
church, like my brother. So it just becomes super insulated and all they see is each other all the time. So
Yeah.
so like when I call and talk to him, I'm the odd one, right? Because I am so far from his worldview. And in those cases, I mean, there needs to be something external that needs to break in. And sometimes it might be as violent as just kidnapping them and pulling them out and trying to undoctrinate. But what happened with him is that and I don't care because that pastor should be called out anyway. His name is Mackie.
Hmm.
Turns out what really broke the mirage or the facade or the spell was this Pastor Mackey had been married for 11 years and something like he was having an affair for 10 of them and with a church member, and no one, I'm hoping that girl was at least 28 when that story came out because he works with young people, for 10 years. How old was this girl? And that was so traumatic for these people, for these kids who put their faith in him, who trusted his judgment for their future spouse. And they trusted his judgment for their future spouse, but he was cheating on his wife for most of his marriage. Like, that really broke the spell. And my brother and sister-in-law, I think my brother really has a soft heart and he wanted to stay and help rebuild the church as they were dealing with this. But his wife finally said, I don't think I could be here. Like, I can't
Yeah.
see the same people. Like, it's just really difficult. And that got them to move to Texas and feel like I got my brother back. So there needs
Wow.
to be some sort of like external thing. The easiest way is to have that, to see the Dr. Oz or behind, not Dr. Oz, the Wizard of Oz
Yeah.
behind the curtain, right? Then that myth is dispelled. Something like that has to happen for people to really own it themselves. If that never happened, I don't know if my brother would
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
Who knows? But they're so. It just becomes, if you're hearing the same thing over and you see the same people over and over again, it becomes your life, and it really is. It needs some sort of external force to get you out of that, and sometimes people don't. And unfortunately, a lot of these kids that were in their 20s that gave their life to not just the church but to Mackie, and like, their lives were ruined. I mean, they didn't. Some of them didn't know what to do. I knew one kid was going to therapy every week because
Oh,
because he was spending most of the time in the bars because he just didn't know how to reconcile giving 5 to 10 years of his youth and
yes.
life to this man,
Yeah.
and it was all based upon a lie.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, not to get political, but like,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm hoping that this whole Epstein thing breaks the facade that a lot of these MAGA people have towards Trump. I mean, if you listen to like not like just Republican, but the MAGA Christian knowledge Republican, they're doing the exact same thing that people exhibiting the same behavior that people in cults are displaying. Like,
Yeah, might as well be Mackey's compound.
yeah, and so like, and you couldn't criticize the pastor, you couldn't criticize Mackie. Every time I say, that's not right, it's like, oh no, you just don't understand how we do things, right? And you see that same thing with Trump. Trump can't do no wrong, and it's like, well, what about this? That was someone else or whatever. So I'm hoping like something like the Epstein files is the catalyst for some people to be shaken out of this trance that they've been placed in for the past almost decade.
And we know just by history that well, I don't know, we know, but we can't be guaranteed, but we would assume, yeah, some might be able to be freed from, the shackles of all that deception, but others will just dig in deeper.
Right.
Because now we fall back. I'm thinking about something you said earlier. I'm actually thinking about a person that I know is going to listen to this. I know what their question would be. Okay, they would be saying to themselves and maybe to me, okay, so maybe if I listen to this podcast long enough, I'll learn more about Joseph and him being a priest and a pastor. But when he talks about back to the Mackey situation, when he talks about his brother saying, hey man, if the tsunami takes us out, better to be with the Lord than to be with here. And then the person who was given this stuff from birth, the Bible just crammed it. What about the passage where Paul says, and I know that somebody might say, well, I didn't really mean this or whatever, but this person that I'm referring to would say, hey, I'm just reading it the way it reads. And that is, it's better to be with the Lord than to be with here. It's better to be outside of the body. It's better to be with the Lord and whatever. So you think about, there are foundations to these belief systems that people go back to. And I think the person would say this to me. They probably wouldn't say it to you, but they'd say, well, ask Joseph, how in the world does he pastor a church with this book, the Bible? How does he pastor? Does he just never talk about those passages? What does he do with? Does he just cherry pick and go, well, that's a passage I don't want to even touch?
Hey, let's set the record straight.
Let's go there.
Every single, I'll start with this. I was in Santa Barbara, I think. So maybe around 2013, I was having a lunch with the other United Methodist pastor, because I used to be a United Methodist in town. Okay. And we were talking, and we were just talking about like the things, how people interpret the Bible. And, I was telling her, all these people coming to me, trying to disagree and saying, the Bible says, the Bible says, the Bible says. And this pastor looked at me, he goes, she goes, first of all, the Bible doesn't say anything because it doesn't have a vocal cord, it doesn't have words, it doesn't have a mouth, it doesn't have a lip, it doesn't have a tongue and teeth and all that stuff. So the Bible literally, physically, technically can't say anything. And I remember hearing this, thinking, this is the dumbest thing I ever heard. Like, what the heck? Like, what? But about a year passed, and that conversation stuck in my head. And then I realized, no, that is really actually very spot on, because anytime we say something about the Bible, it is filtered through our experiences, theology, and what we know. It as Dan McClan, another TikTok Bible scholar, he came up with the phrase that I stole. We all negotiate with the Bible and what it says. Even the staunchest, the literalist people who read the Bible won't take it literally. Jesus, because those, when someone says, oh, you can't deviate from the word of the Bible, and I says, well, Jesus said that if your eye causes you to sin, gouge out the other one. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut off the second hand. So how come you have both hands and both eyes? Are you sinless? And then they'll say, well, Jesus didn't mean like that. He was exaggerating. I was like, oh, so you are very capable of figuring out context, So every single person, from the most staunch literalist to the most loosey-goosey person of the Bible, we all negotiate with the Bible and what it says. Once we read the Bible and tell people what we say, we're not saying what the Bible says, we're saying what we think the Bible says. So cherry picking is obviously a topic that traditionalists will throw when you talk about human sexuality. You can't take that. You're just cherry picking the Bible. I'm like, okay, well, how come you're eating shellfish? How come you're eating pork? How come? And it's like, oh, but that's the Old Testament. It's like, no, you can't have these parameters and then like when it works for you. So everyone picks and chooses from everyone. We don't. I think Richard Rohr says we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are, because we are very biased and subjective beings. It is impossible to be 100% unbiased, because it's just, unless we're a robot. We at our church, we don't ignore the Bible, but I teach people, take the Bible seriously, just not literally. And like you have it's just the mental gymnastics that people go through, right? You have these Christians who believe in young earth, that the earth is only 6,000 years old, and they did the math based upon the creation story. And when you tell these type of people, oh, the creation story wasn't literal, it was a poem, it was, you're focusing on the what, but the writers were focusing on the why and the who. Like, what, it was God who was in control. And they're like, no, you're. It's like, okay, well, how do we measure an Earth day? And
Mm.
by the sun and the moon. Tell me, what day were the sun and the moon and the stars created? Day 4. So how do we know that the first 3 days that didn't have the sun and the moon be 24 days? It makes no sense. In fact, Peter in his letter says 1,000 years is a day to God, a day is 1,000 years. Like we have all these passages. So what are you doing? And so it's we take the Bible seriously. We really, really do, particularly the words that Jesus spoke. I tend to take the gospel readings a little bit more seriously than Paul's
Mm.
letters, because Paul is not the Son of God. Jesus is. But we take the Bible seriously. We just don't feel the need to take it literally. And I don't think it was meant to take literally. And what people have to understand is that the Bible wasn't dictated by God. It was written by humans who are experiencing faith in God. And these humans who wrote these words were trapped in a certain time. So are there
Trapped.
things in the Bible that are out of context today? Yes. That doesn't mean that the truth and the universal themes are doesn't matter. But like, it is permissible in the Bible to sell your daughter into slavery if she doesn't serve your needs. Like, you don't need another daughter. That was okay in the Bible.
Yeah.
So
Promoting
for
slavery.
you who take the Bible literally, if your daughter displeases you, are you going to sell them off to slavery? Because you can do that in the Bible. So it was normal in that context. That's why it's there. If the Bible was written today, I believe in every fiber of my being that if the Bible was written today, if Jesus Christ came and walked on this earth today and we were collecting stories and writing the Bible, we will not have such anti-LGBT things. And we will have things in the Bible that make sense for us now, but when people read it even 30 years, they won't know what it is. I mean, like, it happens all the time. Like,
They'll have to be deconstructing what we were talking about.
I saw this
Because
video
we're
of
not writing a Bible, but in one sense, if they even listen to you and maybe one of your sermons, they might 30, 40, 50 years out, or you're long gone, and they're like, well, we need to consider Joseph's words
as and
in context.
And then, yeah, and that'd be really chill. But I just saw someone where like you ask someone, like a older millennial to a Gen X and the older, ask them, how do you roll down a car window? We all do this, right? But the Gen Z and Gen Alpha have no idea what this means. It's out of context already.
That's a
Like,
great example.
you know what I mean? Like, and our children's lesson last week, or 2 weeks ago, my Sunday school teacher showed me a picture of a rotary phone that they had to use for the Sunday school lesson, and she's like, "These kids aren't gonna know what that is." And I was like, "I'd be curious." They had no
No
idea what a
idea.
rotary phone is. I mean, things get trapped in time and context, and that's okay. That's why God gave us a brain to figure this out. We should not check our brains at the door and just listen to what the pastor says. I would love for you to listen to what I say without challenging me, but then I'm not growing disciples. I'm just creating some sort of weird spiritual robots. Like, we were given our brains for a reason to think and to be, like, just to test everything out. And so the Bible is it can be a contentious thing, but my point is, take the Bible seriously, but you don't have to take it literally.
Let me ask you this, Joseph. Thank you. It's a great segue to this question. I've got a few questions that were written down prior, and I'll get to a few of them. We're already kind of in the mix of one of them. But this question just popped in my head as I was listening to you. Frame that.
Just say it.
No, I want to frame it a certain way. I think I'm going to go with my initial question as I was listening to it. I know. Yeah, let's start with this and then we'll bounce to the other one. You used the word disciple,
Mm-hmm.
a trigger word for many. This might date me, but people I hang out with, I'm 66, and people I hang out with, and people that were coming into the faith, maybe really early on as cradle Christians, but also maybe met Christ, had a conversion experience in high school or college, and they're my age. There used to be this really big movement, maybe there still is, a disciple making. Is there a difference between making humans and making disciples? in regards to the formation of good people doing good in the world. We know that if you're a good disciple, you're doing good things and you're doing good things on behalf of your neighbor. But something about the way you spoke that is your church is doing some formation work in regards to disciples. What's the difference between a disciple and a human being?
I think semantics. I fully believe that Jesus came to this earth to teach us how to be a human being, like fully a human being. And so being a human being and being a disciple should kind of go hand in hand. I also want to point out, if you need Jesus, like if you need religion to make you a nice person, I don't know if you're a good person to begin with. It's just like why do you need Jesus to be a decent human being? Like, you should be a decent human being, and Jesus should make you into a super decent human being, like.
Interesting.
But I think it's more. I don't know if there's a clear answer to that, but I think that if you become a faithful disciple of if you become a faithful disciple of Jesus Christ, that you are almost being the human being that God always intended you to be.
The
So
best human being
yeah,
that you
so
could be.
you become a whole person, the other thing I want to dispel is this idea of perfection, because there's that phrase in Matthew where Jesus says, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. And we harp on this word perfection, and it's kind of mistranslated because the Greek word means whole. So be whole as your Father in heaven is whole. I think disciple making, it pushes. I think as a disciple of Christ, you are being pushed to become a full and whole human being, where love just flows from you, so that you are loved and you are being loved. And I think that's the goal of, for me, a discipleship of a person, is to be radiating in love, to be basking in the presence of love, and radiating that love to anyone and everyone that you come in contact to. So, people could call that as just being a good human being. And for me, I would say, yes, absolutely true. But because I work at a church, we have to have certain key words, and we are making disciples. We are becoming followers of Christ.
It's interesting that it's contextualized, and that's the language of that space.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Why are you a priest, pastor in the Episcopal denomination, and where do you come from? How did you get where you are, and why do you do this with your life?
That is such a good question. So I'm kind of in the family business, so to speak. My dad's, let's see. So I'm a pastor. My dad's a pastor. My dad's oldest brother is a pastor. That oldest brother has 3 kids. 2 of them are pastors, and one of them is married to a pastor. On my mom's side, my grandfather was a pastor. My uncle is a pastor. My cousin one of his sons is in seminary to become a pastor, and my aunt is married to a pastor. So, like I said, and my father-in-law is a pastor, and my wife is an ordained deacon in the United Methodist Church. So it seemed like it was a family business. And long story short, long story kind of less longer. When I was 4, apparently I told my dad I wanted to be a pastor just like him, and he held the words of a 4-year-old hanging over my head for a majority of my childhood, thinking that I was going to be a pastor. Before my teenage years, I thought I wanted to be just like my dad, just be a pastor. Who doesn't, want to be the things that you do, that your dad does and whatnot? But after a while, like when you start seeing how church works, and when you start seeing how mean church people can be towards the pastor and the pastor's family, you're like, I don't want none of this. But I also didn't know how to tell my dad. I went to University of Hawaii. My undergrad was psychology, and I was going to I had decided my senior year, the fall semester of senior year, that I am going to apply to grad school in psychology in the University of Hawaii. And when and if I got in, that was when I was going to talk to my parents and say, I'm not saying no to ministry. I'm just saying I'm going to do this first. And I had all the plans. I was getting an application. I was filling it out. And then one day my dad calls me to come over, because we were living in Hawaii at the time. He told me that I was going to this thing that the United Methodist Church used to hold called Exploration, where like 15 to 25-year-olds are invited to those who are considering ministry to talk to other pastors, seminary representatives, and like what the life entails. It was this beautiful workshop. And it happened to be on the weekend of my 23rd birthday. And I said, no, I'm not going. It's my birthday. And Dad goes, well, happy birthday. Here's your ticket. You're going.
Cool.
And now the funny thing is, when I tell the story to my non-Asian friends, saying when I tell this to my white friends, they're like, what? You are 22. You could have said no. I'm like, listen, no.
Did you just see my reaction as the white guy going, whoa, Dad commanded?
No, I could not say no. Listen,
Wow.
I got this tattoo. This is my newest tattoo right here. It's the biggest piece I have. I got it about last September. I still haven't shown my parents yet. And I'm 44 years old because they will get mad. And I'm still scared of them at 44 years old. There's something about immigrant parents where they instill this
Man.
fear in you. So I had no choice. So I went to this thing and celebrated my 23rd birthday with a bunch of people I didn't know. But in that conference, there was a moment where something just clicked. And I realized, oh, damn, dad was right this entire time. And so I knew that my next step was seminary. And throughout seminary, I really began to learn that no, this was a special calling on me that I had. I felt that this was my calling, not something I wasn't fulfilling something that my dad would. I wasn't being the obligated, like the dutiful elder son. At first I was, but like the more I like was doing, I was like, oh, this feels right. This feels like what I'm supposed to do. And since then, I've tried a couple of times to get out of ministry because it's not as fun as people make it sound like it is. Much like The Godfather, I thought I was out and something just drags me back in. And so I know that this is some sort of call because I can't escape it. And when I try to escape it, I just make my life more complicated. So on top of that, I went to seminary right out of school, right out of college. I finished my undergrad and went right to seminary. So I've been doing this, since pretty much I've been working at a church since 1999. I don't know what other real world skills I have. So like when I was at a point in my life where I was forced to look for work, I was like, what are my skills? I know how to tell stories, but how's that like? Where can I put that skill into? So one, I am woefully ill-equipped to survive in the real world. And two, the more I try to escape this, the more it reinforces that I can't. So it's quite literally a calling that I can't describe.
Wow. And Joseph, you told me when we had our Zoom chat to get ready for this, you told me that you referred to earlier, United Methodist, you were ordained in that tradition, and now you're in the Episcopal tradition. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that, and then introduce us to, kind of your current life at Mosaic? I mean,
Yeah.
it's time to hear that story.
So the thing, for those of you that are not familiar with the United Methodist Church, we operate in what's called an itinerant system. I keep saying we, even though I'm not part of it anymore, but I was for 39 years of my life. And what that means is that much like the Catholic Church or the U.S. government and military, you're sent to certain places. You don't get to choose where to go. The bishop sends you to churches within the geographical boundaries of that annual conference. So, theoretically, in the ideal world, the bishop and his cronies, ideally, it's the spirit that leads them to put you in a church that matches your gifts with the church's need. But oftentimes, politics and human behavior comes in and it gets corrupted. What happened was my bishop was sending me to a church in East Texas, and I realized that was not going to be beneficial for my family, for my son, nor for me. My son is on the autism spectrum, and East Texas is not fully urbanized and whatnot. So the availability of support and special ed stuff would have been very, very limited. On top of that, Houston is one of the most diverse cities in the United States. Where they were trying to send me had 0.01% Asian population. And at the age, I was 39 at the time. I was like, I am too old to go back to some place where I'm the only one of my kind. I don't know if white people understand the stress, the annoyance, the microaggressive acts of racism that people of color feel when they're the only one in their setting. And I was like, I don't have time for that. I'm not going to be patient for that. I'm going to fight back. If someone says I'm Chinese, I'm going to say you're dumb because, Chinese is not, not all Asians are Chinese. And I don't want to deal with, where are you from? Korea, North or South? It's like, hey guys, listeners, listen. When someone says they're from Korea, 99.9999 times it is South Korea because you cannot leave North Korea unless you escape. So when someone tells you that they are Korean, just assume that they are South Korean. Don't ask them, oh, North or South, because some of us might be you might be the straw that breaks the camel's back because we hear that so many times and one day we're just going to snap. But I don't want to go through that. So I said no. And that caused a chain of reactions where I'm like, you know what, maybe I'm done with church. And by then I was feeling burnt out anyway. So that's when I was trying to find a new line of work. But the thing is, there was no place that was really hiring. And when I thought that I wanted to quit ministry altogether, that's when I realized, no, wait, I really want to do this more. And so I was trying to figure out what to do. This person from the Episcopal Diocese of Texas reached out to me, and a friend that I met a couple years ago, and he said, "Let's have coffee." We went, and I was thinking that he was meeting with me so that I could vent about my situation,
And it
and
sounds like you had enough content that you could vent.
yeah, and so as soon as we sat down, I was like, he basically said, "Hey, let's cut the crap. Let's get down to business. I have a proposal for you." And the proposal was to start a church, to plant a church in the city that I lived in. The only caveat was I had to leave the Methodist Church and do it as an Episcopalian. And at first, I was very hesitant because it took me a long time to understand the beast that is the institution of the United Methodist Church. It was the devil that I knew. So I was more comfortable in that. I didn't want to learn a whole new system. And I have just something about me. I often butt heads with people in the institution. I was like, I don't want to start a new fight with people I don't know, and a polity I
I'll
don't
just
know, and
fight
all
the
that
old
stuff.
fight.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure it was a both and. Nobody was giving me a job. And also, this one started making more sense. And finally, one day, after talking to a lot of people, my family, my wife, my parents, my trusted mentors, it just felt right. So then I accepted the call, went through another ordination process with the Episcopal Church.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
and I don't recommend people going through two ordination process. It is not worth it.
That's pretty rigorous, isn't it?
Yeah, but I did get shotgun through the Episcopal one, so that wasn't too bad.
They fast
And
tracked you.
yeah, and we've been I started this work in 2019. We are supposed to launch Mosaic Episcopal Church in person for weekly gatherings in August of 2020, but like everyone else in the entire world, 2020, everything took we all had to cancel our plans and reevaluate because of the shutdown. And but in September of 2021, we launched our in-person worship and been doing so since then. So we are in year 4 of gathering in person on a weekly basis of Mosaic Episcopal Church.
How much autonomy do you have to within the Episcopal tradition to make it whatever you want it to be, or your group to make it, how much freedom do you have in that space?
I don't really quite know. Because I'm still learning the polity. So at some point, I decided, I'm not going to ask for permission. I'm just going to ask for forgiveness. I know that the way that we do things are not like if a old school Episcopalian came visit us, they'd be like, "Wait a minute, where am I? I thought this was an Episcopal church." But I haven't gotten a letter from any of the bishops that we're doing something wrong. So until someone says something, I'm just like, I'll just ask for forgiveness if I'm doing something wrong.
Joseph, you're clearly not risk averse.
But listen, all throughout my life, all throughout my ministry, it's always been people first. Like grace trumps theology, people trumps people over methodology, people over polity. Like there are certain things in the Episcopal Church that I'm realizing I disagree with, and I'm gonna toss it aside because the most important thing for me is to connect with this person to let them know that they are loved. And the second, and maybe even the third part of my job is to make them a good Episcopalian. But my first step is to just let them know that they are loved and that they are called to be loved. And then let's do it under the Episcopal
Yeah, right.
lens. But like, I'm not here to make, I don't know if the bishop's going to like me hearing it, but I don't feel the call. My calling isn't to make good Episcopalians. My call is to make good followers of Christ and good humans. And help them see how good that they have already been, and now spread that goodness to other people, because the message of our world today is sorely lacking in goodness and in love. So let's fill that void, and let's fill that space, and let's do it as Episcopalians. But first and foremost, let's do it because that's what we're invited to do as followers of Christ.
Do me a favor. Would you look on your desk or around you? Would you find some little ornament or something that it doesn't have to mean anything for the ornament's sake, but it would remind you that we want to bookmark. So we end on what you just said, because you're referring to what the church is in these times and what we're to do. So would you just put that in front of you? Because if I space off, I want you to go, "Hey, remember, we're going to talk." There you go. I like it, man.
I don't even know how to open this. This is my phone stand that I bought that I haven't used.
Well, there it is. It'll remind you. Great. Because I'm going to jump to something else for a moment.
Okay.
Two things. Number one is, do you come from the United Methodist tradition?
Yes.
Okay, so you said that in your discernment process, you checked in with your family and you mentioned your dad. I don't know anything about your dad, but it sounds like dad can be, quite commanding and intense.
Yeah, he's a pastor and a Korean person at that.
Okay, so how
Sorry,
did he
I just
deal
trying
with?
something with.
You're trying to figure that thing out, man.
I know. I
How
should.
did how did
I'm gonna grab
dad and
this.
your
This is easier.
you grab it, man? How did dad and your people respond to you jumping traditions?
The funny thing was, my parents and both my in-laws did not know the Episcopal Church very well, and so my mother-in-law, bless her heart, still thinks that it's some sort of like small cult or something like that. But my dad was concerned, and I didn't realize what his concern was. But when I told him, I think my parents know me by now. Like, if it feels right to me, I'm gonna ask them their advice, but I'm gonna ultimately do what I think is best for myself and for my family. But once he saw the contract that I signed with the Episcopal Church and he saw my salary, he said, "Oh, okay, so you're going to be taken care of." And then he kind of like
Wow.
said,
Wow.
"Okay." So I think what he was worried about was I'm going to be giving up all this stuff and taking an unnecessary risk and put my family and because he's gone through something like that. And so I think he was reacting out of his trauma, and he wasn't sure. He thought that the Episcopal Church was still very Catholic, and the funniest thing is the United Methodist Church is also very Anglican because John Wesley was Anglican, right? So, and the
Yeah,
Episcopal
right.
Church is part of the Anglican community. But once my dad found out that I was going to be paid exactly what I was being paid as a Methodist church, he was like, "Okay, so this isn't a one church shoot off thing. This is an actual denomination with like a pension plan and all that stuff." And
Yeah.
once he found that out, he was like, "Well, at least you're still in ministry," type of thing.
Yeah. And you're going to be taken care of. It's solid.
Yeah, yeah.
So, is there a difference between your preaching and your serving communion, the Eucharist, in the Episcopal tradition? If we heard you on a given Sunday morning at Mosaic, has it changed you, and maybe just even your own growth, to what you sounded like in the United Methodist and the serving of communion? Is that a different experience for you as a priest?
Yes and no. Methodists in general don't do communion every week. Most Methodist churches do communion the first Sunday of the month. And so when I was a Methodist, I still did communion weekly because there's something about that sacrament that really
Wow.
hits home for me. But I used to do my own. I didn't go through the whole entire liturgy that
Right. Right.
traditionally, right? Like I did say, on the night that he gave him up for it, I did use that part, but I would say something else in between and whatnot. In the Episcopal Church, I kind of have to follow the liturgy.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
not much, so that's
Right.
different. And the other thing that is different is there's two things that are. One is minor, one is major. The one thing that is that the Episcopals use wine, real wine, where
Oh,
the
yes.
Methodists use Welch's grape juice because Welch's was a Methodist when the founder of Welch's.
Oh my gosh, so it's not just grape juice, but it better doggone be Welch's.
It's the
Didn't know that, man. This is the
unofficial
official grape
sponsor.
juice.
That was, like sometimes I still forget and I take that and the wine just like wakes me up. But also I feel like that's a good reminder of just be awake. But the biggest thing, and I don't know how much trouble I'm gonna get in for this, but I don't care. The biggest thing that rubs against me about the way that Episcopal churches handle communion is that the Methodist Church believes in open table, meaning that anyone and everyone is welcome to participate in the active in the active sacraments. You can be atheist, you can be agnostic, you can just be walking by down the street and happen to see what's going on in here. There's no prerequisite of
Wow.
receiving communion, and that for me has always been so beautiful. It matched with me because people first, right? Love people first, and then everything falls into place. But the Episcopal Church, the idea is only baptized. Anyone who's baptized may participate in the
So
Eucharist.
it's kind of Catholic-like,
Yes,
because you
yes.
could clearly be denied mass with the
So
elements.
so the and I was really struggling with this. I'm like, okay, how do I break this rule? And the person that the dies is set up with me for the first 6 months to be an Episcopalian. I interned at the local church. Father Jim Libertor, he looked at me and was like, "Don't stress out about this. We don't check ID." So I was like, okay. So I know a lot of our people that come to Mosaic are not baptized, and they come forward to the communion table. And at that point, me refusing communion is going to be far more detrimental and
Wow.
harmful than to say, here, just take it. And I keep asking this question: does God care? Like, does God care that this person wasn't baptized first? And I keep saying, I come to the conclusion, no. This is more important for the Episcopal priests who are, by the books than it is for building a kingdom. So I still advocate for an open communion. I don't. When the bishops are in town, I might say, if you're baptized, come for whatever, or we might have it in the thing. But the bishop doesn't visit much, and I don't know if they catch the live stream of us, but we don't have anything in our liturgy that says only, because a lot of Episcopal church on their bulletin will say only all baptized Christians are
Oh,
welcome.
that's interesting because I participated in 2 Episcopal parishes, and neither one of them I never saw anything in print.
Yeah, see, so it's not even. I know a lot of priests who, including the one who trained me, that kind of
Right.
like under that. So I know I'm in good company, but it's just one of those things where like this doesn't make sense to me. And I've been accused by my fellow priests that I have a low sacramental theology, and I said, I take that as a compliment because our church is growing because we're resonating with people, and you guys are struggling to keep this place alive. So leave me alone. I'm not saying, I'm not critiquing what you do, so stop critiquing
Yeah.
what I do, and what I'm doing is working for our context, and maybe y'all need to do something because nothing's working in your context, so leave me the hell alone. What's the matter what I do?
And it also begs the question, which we don't have time to get into today, but you can imagine, people that translate and interpret good theology as translated into good living and a good way to see the world. But it also begs the question of, well, what is the body of Christ? Who is the body of Christ? And yeah, I've got some really strong opinions about that have not always been met well. And
Yeah.
I don't understand in my own theology, i.e. my own brain. It's like, but the specific body, like I just joined the American Baptist Church, a church here in town. That's the body of Christ. But when I go to Safeway and I look around, I say to myself, because I didn't grow up in a church, I look around and go, this is the body of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Not Safeway per se and all the groceries, but all these people.
Yeah.
I make no difference, man. There's no differentiation in my mind.
And there shouldn't be.
People, and there shouldn't be. But then what is? So that's a whole other question. I got 2 things, and we know your orange water container there is we're gonna end on.
It's red because
right
it's a
now.
Spider-Man.
Red.
It's a Spider-Man.
I like it, man.
I'm 44 years old, everybody.
You got to tell me something about. Right on. You mentioned something when we were doing our Zoom kind of pre-chat. Why do you love professional wrestling?
Why wouldn't I?
I don't know. What is it about professional wrestling? I mean, you are like, I mean, because I think I remember saying, aren't those wrestling belts up on your wall? And you're like, yeah.
Yep.
Talk to me about that, man.
Yeah, it's male soap opera. The thing is, like, people will dismiss saying it's fake, and no, it's not fake. It's scripted, right? These people are taking legitimate risks with their body, and a lot of them have drug problems because they took so much painkillers because they're literally breaking down their bodies for entertainment. And so and it's just like a reality show. People don't think like the Real Housewives of Orange County or the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or Vanderpump. Those are scripted as well. They're not as reality or real as it seems. Sometimes if something happens off screen, they'll make the people reenact it on screen so that they have it. So I would rather give my time to reality stars that actually have talents, like the wrestlers. What happens when you're a kid, you're just caught in the spectacle of it all. The big men and women, the high-flying moves, the good guys and the bad guys. But when you become my age, you start noticing the background, the stuff that happens behind the scenes. And that's the thing that has constantly fascinated me in my adult life. So right now, there's a wrestler called Seth Rollins, and we're all trying to figure out, he got hurt. And it seems like he legitimately hurt himself, but the people are talking about it so much. And so now a lot of us are wondering, okay, is this a shoot? A shoot means It's actual something that really happened that wasn't planned, and
Right.
the work is something that was planned. So we're like, is it a work? Is it a shoot? Is he really hurt? Did he tore his ACL? And it's kind of these things and how they play around with it that fascinate me. The locker room politics, the storylines, the ways that John Cena, who buried someone, meaning someone like someone who's on the rise, and then John said no, and kind of deflated their meteoric rise, and they're become no one anymore after that. Why were they buried? There's so many different elements of fascination, and at the end of the day, it's all about storytelling.
Okay.
You have these storylines. These people are working, and then in the what people also don't know is in the match there's a lot of psychological storytelling that they're doing here. So everything is telling a story. We just the climax of the story is these two people just beating each other's up in the ring, and that in of itself is fascinating to me, and it is to my son. But now the politics behind the stage has become more fascinating to me, and how these characters are developed, and the practice that they do, and the scripts that they went through, and people going off script. And do we, like there's one, if you're curious, if you look up Nia Jax, Niajax, and Charlotte Flair, you will see them in the match on a Monday night get into an actual real fight in the middle of it.
I was going to ask, do they ever fall out of script and brawl?
Yeah, that happens. And then in the early 2000s, there was two groups of wrestlers, tag teams. One's name is Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy, and the other name is Edge. Now, in real life, Matt Hardy was dating another female wrestler named Lita. And Lita ended up cheating on Matt with this wrestler named Edge. And so there was this weird thing. And the crazy thing, and there was a lot of tension, and the crazy thing is that Vince McMahon and the people in power took that real life drama and made it into the show. And so you have to watch how these two interact, because they hate each other in real life, but they're also professional, and they're jumping off 20-foot ladders, they're jumping off, and landing, and they still are very careful to not hurt each other. Sure, they won't, they might go a little bit extra on the punch, but the big risk-taking things, they were very, very professional.
They're constrained by the script.
Yeah, and things like that is just really, like, how do you put aside this animosity and put on this professionalism when you hate this person's guts because, one, you stole my girl, and two, the other guy's like, get over it, you didn't treat her right, and they made it into a sort of, and it's one of the most popular feuds between these two teams,
But they're constrained by the script.
Right.
The script creates a boundary.
Right.
Okay, so let's go back to liturgy. Does liturgy do that for a given congregation?
Absolutely. One of the things I love about liturgy is the repetition is helpful. The repetition isn't helpful when we're just repeating it for the sake of repeating it. Like the Lord's Prayer that we often say without even thinking about what the words say. Right. But one of the things I appreciate about the repetitives of our liturgy is when things get really hard and you just don't know what to do, these words that you've been saying over and over, it just suddenly come to you, and it becomes a sort of prayer. So absolutely, the liturgy helps frame the movement towards real world. I tell my church quite often on Sunday mornings as an intro, what we do inside of these walls matter, because it shapes us and how we live outside the walls. So what we do is important. Words that we say, the songs that we sing, the prayers that we recite, these are absolutely vital for forming us and shaping us, so that when we go out into the world, we are carrying these words with us. And so, yeah, absolutely.
So, Joseph, it reminds me, I'll tell a quick story, and then we got to get to, and we're going to go over an hour, which, are you okay with that?
Oh, yeah. I got nowhere else to go.
Let's go. Let's keep going, man. So here's a real short story. I heard it a few weeks ago. A friend of mine told me, so Doug, I go to this church, and I'm in this group, kind of a small group, Sunday school type of setting. And there's a person in the group that really triggers me. I don't like the person. I'm trying to like the person. I'm trying to find something human about them that I have an affinity for, but I haven't found it yet. I don't like the person. And I've already built up in my mind that, we might get into, maybe not a brawl, but we'll get into an argument or whatever. And every once in a while, I just want to, like, take this person down off their high horse. Okay.
I know those people.
Okay. So here's what the dude tells me. He said, I'm sitting in this group setting and we're praying. And he said, I opened my left eye for some reason. And the person, and he knew this, the person that I don't like was sitting right beside me. Wouldn't you know it? He said, we all just sat down in this group, but wouldn't you know, I'm sitting, and his right foot is all I saw out of the corner of my, as I opened my eye. Why I opened my eye during this prayer time? I don't know. And I see his foot, and I see his sandal, and I see the sock on his foot, and something breaks through, and whatever, he's still, I don't understand it, Doug. This is a human being with a foot, and I don't see the rest of this person. He said the sandal was kind of tattered,
Hmm.
and the sock was kind of frayed. And he said, I felt an affinity for this person.
Hmm.
I felt connected, like you're a human being, I'm a human being. He said, wouldn't you? He said, isn't that crazy, Doug? That sounds crazy in my own ears. And he said, it opened me up to trying to connect with him. And he said, we actually have had some good conversations since.
Oh,
He's not my favorite person, but I no longer hate him.
yeah.
I don't hate him.
Yeah.
I don't have to pray, oh, I don't want ill will to fall upon him, so help me. He said, I don't want ill will to fall upon him. And I thought, man, that's a crazy story. But
That's a great story.
isn't that a great story?
Yeah. What I would tell your friend is, hey, you're in good hands because Jesus didn't say like your neighbors, he said love your neighbors. And
Yeah.
I think even Jesus knew liking someone at all times is next to impossible.
And to think the access point wasn't
It was a
through
foot.
prayer per se. It was a foot in
Yeah.
in a frayed sock and kind of a beat up sandal.
But also, my first question was, do people wear socks with sandals? That was my first.
Oh, they do where he lives.
So, but I love that story because in the book that I wrote, I talked about the saint called Kateri. Oh my God, I can't say her last name, Tikawitha or something like that. I can't believe I butchered that. Her Native American name means one who bumps into everything, and it was a mean name because she was partially blind, so she was literally bumping into everything.
Oh gosh.
But that's the kind of life that we're supposed to live. And I think what I see, the first thing that thought to my mind was, when you're talking about stories, one, you don't have to like someone. That's not the call. Is to love someone, and you can love someone without liking, because we've all been part of families where we're like, I don't like you right now, and that's okay. But the constant like bumping, the constant like being exposed to this person, I think wore his wall down.
Well, and then really what broke him open was just the visual.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a literal, it wasn't like he could see him in a better light. It was the sandal and the sock that reached him, and he went, he is human.
Yeah. And
And
that happened because they kept seeing each other on a regular basis, right?
yeah, and he
they
didn't
were bumping into each other all the time.
They were.
And
They were forced to sit beside each other.
Yeah.
That's
Jesus does have a plan for us in how we destroy our enemies. And how we destroy our enemies is to love them so much that they, at the least, become our neighbors, and at the most, become friends. And
okay, so we're going to segue right now. We're going to segue.
Yeah.
Perfect segue for your red water container. What do you think is the biggest challenge for the church as we move forward? And I know that you're asking that in the context of Christian nationalism and a fascist government and everything that we're seeing on the streets and everything we know about Alcatraz. Man, I'm telling you what, Erica, my pastor, she preached Sunday morning, and it might have been the sanctuary we're in, it might have been the space I was in, I'm sure it was all included. We're in this space, and I could read about it on the news. I knew about what happens in that place. But man, when she took us as a congregation, I felt like I was literally inside those cages. That's how, and I'm sure the Spirit's involved in that. And it got so close, I was like, stop talking. It's too close.
Yeah.
This is, I can't handle this. I can't handle this reality. It's too awful. It's too awful. Anyways, all I want to say about that is that might have I mean, I read about this stuff, and it was something about being in church, something about being in that place. As you said, rubbing shoulders with, but I'm going to tell you what, that sermon, man, it broke me open. So we presuppose you and I are in agreement. This is a chaotic world, and the church and all that. So what do you think is the biggest challenge for the church as we move forward?
Personally, I think for me, one of the biggest challenges I see is regaining the trust and credibility of people. I think we've done, the passage, I think Paul says, maybe it was Paul, maybe it was Jesus, but the Gentiles, cursed my name because of you, or whatever. I shouldn't say whatever when it comes to Bible passages, but I think that we have done a disservice trading in for power the gospel of Christ. And the problem is that those people get the airwaves and the exposure. So the average American who's never stepped foot in the church will associate the church with the likes of Franklin Graham and Falwell's and those people who are right next to the president and
John
all that.
MacArthur, who just died.
And someone else just died too in the Christian world. But because someone said, there should be three, and I'm hoping it's this person. I was like, oh, that's kind of mean. And that's the other thing, right? Like, what I think the biggest challenge for us ahead is to combat the bad PR that we give in Jesus, and to regain trust, and to prove to people that or not to prove people, to love people in such a way that maybe they can deny the existence of God, but they can't deny the good that the church is doing in the name of God. And I think that is our biggest challenge. And one of the things that I look ahead to is maybe this is the last gasp for air that the Christian nationalist movement has. And maybe after this administration, this kind of stuff will slowly die out. And that would be welcome, because you can't have resurrection without death. And maybe if this branch of the Christian expression dies, it'll be replaced with something that's a little bit more whole and less fractured. So, and that's going to take years. And right now, like, it was difficult saying I was a pastor in the 2010s. Part of that was because I was in Southern California. And the idea of, churches were so foreign, and people already had their conceptions about it, but it's become amplified since 2016. And so churches are even less. And I can tell by the comments that people leave on my videos, I'm like, we've lost the plot. Many of us have completely lost the plot. And so to regain the plot and to regain trust and to tell people, no, God pushes us, compels us to be just like God, which is love. And that love should manifest in a way that it helps the vulnerable instead of further kicking them down. I think that is the biggest challenge of the church in the next 10 years, is to really establish that we are here to make the world better and not to take control and kick everyone out, or not to be like this dictator or whatever, to kneel or die type of thing. Because that's the mentality. You're either for us or you're against us. And it's at some point you're like, have you ever sat and asked if you're on God's side instead of claiming that God is on your side? Like, have you ever asked? Because if you're on God's side, I don't know if this, because the God I know is about justice and love and justice for the vulnerable and whatnot. God is a God who liberates, and we are trying to put more people into cages. I think we've lost the plot, So just being faithful and loving Christians, I think, is going to be unfortunately a uphill battle for us. But it needs to be done. We need to provide another way for people to understand, another avenue, another route towards Jesus, saying that, the Christian nationalism has this route, and it's a big and loud route that everyone associates Christians with. But there are other ways to follow Jesus Christ. And hopefully, you see that many of us are trying to embody the love that is of Christ.
Yeah, we're just trying, aren't we? It
We're
reminds me
trying.
of, and this is a thank you for what you just shared. Yeah, it reminds me of a story I heard recently where there was a person who was attending a church, and they weren't a churched person, and they were asking the pastor. They were meeting with the pastor, and they were asking, what I feel drawn here, and I've been coming here, and I feel loved, and whatever. But why would I want to join the church, and whatever? And the pastor, I was told this story. The pastor picked up on the fact that, hey, this person's got some issues with church. And here's what the pastor said, and she told the truth. She said, I was recently talking to one of my colleagues who's a practicing pastor, and he said something that was quite shocking to me. This pastor's telling this person who might become a member, and the person said, "What did he tell you?" And he said, "Well, I think we probably ought to spend 2 years apologizing as Christians. We ought to apologize for probably up to 2 years, and maybe more. I don't know why he picked two. That's a long time. Take 2 years to apologize to the world what we've done to the world." And the person joined the church. The person's like, I'm in, because they had some stuff, they had some shit from stuff that had
I
been
didn't know we could cuss. I was watching my language this whole time.
I know, man. I mean, AI
I was
might kick
mindful
me
of my
out.
language. I have colorful
Well, go
language.
ahead and
I
get
didn't
one
know.
in.
God
Go
damn
ahead
it!
and get. Go ahead.
I picked the worst one as a Christian.
You did. You did. Well, I'm telling you. You know what? This is time to be honest, man. Dude, here it is. This is in pure honest form. When I was, anyways, let me see if I want to wrap that story up. It really resonated because that person had church hurt and family members who had church hurt. And when she said we had to spend the majority of our time apologizing to the world, the person's like, I want to join this church. And I mean, and I know enough about that church. They're clearly proclaiming Jesus Christ. I mean, it's not watered down thing. But anyways, that really resonated. Okay, let's go back to, we'll finish with this. You chose that word. And by the way, I didn't grow up in a Christian family, but there's one word we couldn't use, man. My
Is it see
dad,
you
when
next
he,
Tuesday?
what's that?
Was the word see you next Tuesday?
No, it was, God damn it.
That's what I said.
And my father said, if you ever, I mean, he could barely speak it. And he was not a religious man at the time, but he said, if you ever say that, basically what he was saying is
But
heads will
here's
roll.
my thing. Yes, that kind of is taking the Lord's name in vain. But what's worse, me
But
saying
is it
that,
really?
or the Christians who are forced using Jesus' name and forcing horrible things like pastors posing next to alligator Alcatraz? Like that is more using the Lord's name in vain than me
Yeah,
saying
but
God
is it
started.
even the word itself, the etymology of the word? I mean, really, if you just look at it and go, you ask an alien, they go, well, I guess you're saying whatever that entity, deity is, whatever, hates that. It's like, God damn it. So here's my story, man. I'm sitting in church, and when Erica is taking us to that place of what's going on, and it just reached me, and I was just like, I cannot hold myself. And then I felt like I wanted to just stand up and scream,
Hmm.
but of course I didn't. But when she said, and then I didn't know this. She said there's people that drive by, however close they get to the compound, and they take pictures like they're at the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And you know what I said? And I said it out loud. I said, God damn it. And I'm thinking, oh God, who's sitting in front of me, man? Who is sitting in front of me? It wasn't loud enough to where it in any ways eclipsed her voice or anybody else, but it just came out of me. I just like it. Well, like you said, pastors that are wearing the shirts and whatever. It's like I can't live in this world, man. I cannot live in this world and not say that word.
Right.
So, anyways, Joseph, this has been great, man.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Oh, good, man. Good. I'm glad you had a good time. I
Can't
know
believe
you
it's
got,
already over an hour.
dude. We're looking at an hour and 15
I
minutes.
know.
I don't know what AI will do with this. It'll probably come in and slice a little bit. It might even want to come in and wait. This is a religious-based podcast. We got to get
and
rid of those swear words, or maybe AI is like, no, have them in there. Protest a bit. Protest a bit. Joseph, can we do this again sometime?
Absolutely.
What I'd love to do, and you and I talked about this before, but I would love to, and it will be the next invite that I give to you. I'll do a roundtable. That's what we call it here at From the Belly. I'll do a roundtable. I'll have you with some colleagues, and it'll get spicy in the
I'm
right
all
sense.
for it.
Somebody one time said, you know what? If you really want to get people to listen, get people to fight on there. Get
Yeah, that's
somebody
true.
and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to witness and facilitate that kind of debate. Like you're on one side, you're on the other. I'm not doing that. But if there's differing opinions or there's different takes, it's like, sure, we could do that, and we'll do it in a civil manner. So we probably won't get another Episcopalian. We'll slide an American Baptist in there, or we'll slide a Pentecostal folk in
I hope.
there. Yeah, we'll spice it up, man. I got a new friend, David Strong, who pastors a African American Catholic church in Tacoma. He's going to be
Wow.
one of my guests. I'd
All right.
slide him in there, and it would be. I learned so much from him in 15 minutes about the African American journey and whatever in the church, and I was like, man, David, stop because we got to save all this for the podcast. It's fun to put good people together, man. So Andrew, I mean Joseph, you'll be in good company, man. You'll be in good company. I'm
Sounds
grateful
good.
for your time. I have no money to pay you, and you said you didn't expect to be paid. But let's do this as we go out because I told you in the preamble to this, we're going to do something I've never done before.
Oh, that's right.
What's something local in Houston or your area? What's something local that you would like to do a shout out to a business or a restaurant or something? Because this is as close as we can get to having sponsorship. And then I'm going to tell you mine.
You go first.
Mine is I want to shout out to the Safeway pharmacy.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. I mean, my wife and I need meds. And those people, man, I'm telling you what, the Rite Aid closed in town
Uh-huh.
and there's Walgreens and they're the only ones that fill prescriptions. I mean, Safeway was busy before. I was there the other day and there was like 40 people in line.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I looked at Brenda, man, and I'm like, if I could, I'm praying for Brenda just to be able to handle the stress of this line, and it's already 5 o'clock in the evening, and she's going to drive that thing till 7. But I want to do a shout out to the staff and the pharmacy at the McMinnville Safeway because they serve us, man. I'm so grateful because if I didn't have my meds and my wife didn't have her meds, it'd be problematic, man. So that's my shout out. You got one?
Yeah, if I'm going to shout out someone local, it has to be Pearland Coffee Roasters that serves as my office. I'm there more than I'm not. So a lot of people, and that particular they just opened two more, but the one that we visit all the time, it sits right next to the train tracks. And my son loves to go and watch the trains. And that gives me enough time to just do like things where I don't require too much attention. So like answering emails or making bulletins, whatever. And I could just see him going back and forth. And their coffee is the best in town. And I've been a regular since 2016, since we moved here. And if you're ever in Pearland, a suburb of Houston, there's a place called Pearland Coffee Roasters on 35 and Broadway. And if you're there 9 out of 10 times, there's more. If you're there in the mornings, you'll most likely run into myself and my son. Great coffee.
What a beautiful shout out, man. What a beautiful shout out. Maybe one day they'll be a sponsor.
Maybe.
And maybe Safeway will be a sponsor. Probably not.
You'll have a better chance of getting Safeway.
Right on. Right on. Well, I love good coffee, man. So, Joseph, thank you, man. I really appreciate
thank you.
it. Thanks for becoming a new friend. And yeah, thanks for doing the work that you do, and thanks for being in the world at this time doing this work. So, God bless you, man.
You too. Thank you.
Stay with me here for a moment when I hit the stop. So
yeah, because you have to upload.
We have to do the upload. So,
we're
audience.
99% though.
Okay, man, we're there. So, audience, I don't know how much of this is you're going to hear because AI might do. Who knows? But I think we were two honest humans.